Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cine-Picks. This is a show where we take turns picking movies for each other to watch that we haven't previously watched, so then now we have watched them. And today, Michaela is the one who picked the movie. So, Michaela, what was your Cine-Pick for this week?
All right, Kevin, my Cine-Pick for you is one of my favorite movies. It is Disney's 2016 movie, Moana.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Moana.
How would you describe then?
Moana?
So I know that this is your first time seeing Moana. How would you describe Moana if you could summarize it?
So, Moana, it's a fish out of water story, kind of literally in some points. So it's anyways, but basically you got a isolated island. Everybody's happy there, but then everything starts to die. So now it's up to Moana, who's the daughter of the chief and will be the future chief. It's up to her to go on an epic adventure to take a stone. Is the heart of the stone.
The heart of Te Fiti.
The heart of Te Fiti. There we go. And put it back. Give it back to Te Fiti. So there you go. That's basically Moana.
Yeah. It's a very interesting sort of like multi-step hero's journey process where it's like, step one, the crops are dying. What do we do? Step two, you gotta go find a god who can help you with that. Step three, oh wait, no. I think finding Maui came third. I think it was step one, the crops are dying. Step two, they found out, it's probably because the land hates us for some reason. And Te Fiti, who is the kind of like Mother Earth figure in this Polynesian culture, they have to like find a way to, I guess, appeal to her and return her heart. That was one thing that kind of confused me, is like, is the mom is the only one that, the grandma is the only one that knows about the story. The grandma is the kind of the wise sage character that's just kind of seemingly all-knowing. She's like, you must restore the heart of Te Fiti. So that's like step two. Yeah. But then she's like, how am I going to do that? And then grandma's like, now you must find Maui. And then she finds Maui, and Maui's like, but first I need my staff. And then they get the staff, and it's like, well, now it's broken, but we gotta go anyway. And so there's so many like I almost wish that, like, in a way, I almost kind of wish that Moana was like a 2-part story or something. Not like I want there to be a Moana 2, even though I would love that personally. Yeah. But like, I almost feel like the story itself, there's so many like, I must do this, and I have to backtrack, and I have to do this, and I have to backtrack again. It was kind of, to me, like watching a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Yeah. But in the runtime of a children's movie. So a lot was just happening in a very short time frame. But that's not bad.
Right. Yeah, and I think it works pretty well. I think, it's fast-paced enough. There's a lot going on, but it keeps you satisfied. It gives you little bite-sized chunks. You ask a question, what's happening? Oh, here's what's happening. And then what's going, and there is the overlining goal of like return the heart to Te Fiti, but then there's a bunch of little tiny series of goals that you have to do to get there. So like first you have to get past the reef. Apparently that's a difficult thing to do, especially for a novice sailor or somebody who hasn't sailed at all. And so to get past the reef, and then now you've got past the reef, now you have to find Te Fiti. Where is he? Or you have to find Maui. Where's Maui? And then you find Maui. But then that's not the end of it either. Now you have to convince Maui to go on this adventure with you. And then you have to find his staff. And then then there's this one thing after another. But every single time, you're always moving closer to that end goal. It's never stagnant. You're never not moving forward. And I think they did that really well.
With the exception of the very end where Moana almost gives up after Maui abandons her, and she's like, I can't do this on my own. Like, Ocean, please take back the stone. but then she gets inspiration from her
Yeah.
grand. Okay, that
Well,
scene made me cry. How did you cry at all during this movie?
no.
Okay.
But I feel like that's the huge character moment. That's her moment where she knows exactly who she is. Now she's
That's
taken,
a growth
that's
moment.
her growth. So now she's, going to take responsibility for this whole thing. She's going to, uh, she, she's not doing it to prove anything anymore. I feel like a lot of the time she's trying to prove it. She wants to be the strong warrior or the chief or whatever. But now she's just, this is the time where she decided it's time for me to, I have to return this heart to Defeaty no matter what. And she's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. She's willing to die now. All of the things that she has learned throughout her adventure, all of her sailing techniques, every little thing that she's learned, and all of her growth all comes together at that one moment to be able to get past the fiery monster.
Like, how do you feel about the plot of this movie basically being the same? Because, like, when you think about it, it's definitely got the same plot as the Disney Renaissance Princess movie.
Mm-hmm.
The culture's just changed, and they fleshed out the characters a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's that same coming of age, like, I'm a girl, I'm gonna sing my I Want song,
Mm-hmm.
and because I want something that is greater out there. Said girl leaves, encounters struggles, overcomes them, comes back. However, the parents are both alive, so I mean, that's a difference.
But
That's good.
yeah, no, I like it. I don't think there's anything wrong with them following that formula. I mean, if it's not broken, why fix it? Like it's a solid formula, and there's enough. I feel like there's enough variation in this movie to be able to set it apart from classic Disney princess movies.
I like that
And
home is just as important as exploring too.
yeah, and I think it was really like everything was pretty well explained. Because that was the thing that like no the little bit that I know about the Islanders culture and especially like the Polynesians or whatever is that they are voyagers and they like to go from island to island and explore and everything. They were like the first real explorers, long distance explorers, and but then when I watch this movie, it's pretty well established that on this particular island, they don't explore. They don't leave the island. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But then they explain it really, really well. Why did they not do it? What was the change in culture? And I feel like that was I felt that was really well explained in here because of the father's, well, yeah, the father,
Because of the father's
her father's
past.
accident, that's kind of scarred him for life, and it's just like, outside of the reef is super dangerous, and he's already been responsible for his best friend's death. He doesn't want to be responsible for anybody else's death, especially as the chief of the island. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
be responsible
It's
for
explainable. Like
anybody
it's
else.
you kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, and so it's very. I think it was very well explained, and also the fact that for a time he was able to convince his own daughter, that in order to be a great chief, that she has to stay on the island as well, and so through that musical montage, you see that she has accepted her role as the chief of the island and how she has kind of stayed put. And it wasn't until they decided, or it wasn't until things started turning bad when the crops started failing and the fish, don't exist. The fish are gone. That's when she's like, well, then we need to explore outside of the reef. That's the only way. Obviously, the island.
I
It's
feel
not producing.
I feel like it was hinted at earlier than that though.
That
Like when
was
she was a baby and she was like going out into the sea. Like I think she's always like felt like a
she.
pull.
She always wanted to go out, but her father convinced her not to. And it wasn't until things started failing when her old desires to leave the island came back. Right, and so it wasn't until the island started failing is when she decided, I want to go out again. And so, but before that, she stayed put. She's like, okay, stay on the island. Focus on the people. That's what's important. And so, but I don't know where are we going with this.
I know. I
Well,
was just like, I feel like there's so many positive things. Like,
yeah.
for what it is, I think that Moana is a wonderful feel-good film.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it multiple times in the theater
Mm-hmm.
because I just enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
I'm just like, admittedly, it may not be the most culturally representative of that group of people, but it gave like the exposure and the interest to the culture,
Mm-hmm.
and that at least it was a good place to start.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it did anything overtly offensive. It There may have been some inaccuracies, and I know that there have been like human rights groups to bring that up, but for what it's worth, it kind of did the same thing that I felt like Mulan did for me,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, I'm a person that is not that did not grow up in the culture of my ethnicity,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like I identified with the character, even though we were from different backgrounds, and found like a weird kind of strength from that.
Yeah.
So, like, if anything, I think it gave that culture more exposure,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good thing, I think, for representation in film and for diversity in film,
Yeah.
you know. But then there's also the argument of, like, okay, how many things are we allowing to slip by, though, in favor of getting that representation on screen,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I don't know. I'm like, this is all dealing with, like, I know this is, like, dealing with an entire, like, social thing.
Yeah.
It's just like my thing as a person of color
Yeah.
who's also an actor, because there's so many, and like that was the thing too with the debate over like Mulan, over like Lilo and Stitch, where some people in like in forums that I follow who are people of color were like, okay, they're like, there were a lot of things that were like wrong with the movie I just saw, but is it worth it to still, would it even be worth it to pull it? Because if we pulled it for its inaccuracies and for all the backlash that it got, then you're taking away too
Mm-hmm.
from
Yeah.
what people are trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just like it's constantly weighing the
Mm-hmm.
the risks and benefits of getting people exposure.
Yeah.
And I know that Disney really did try. Like they had an entire board of people
Mm-hmm.
who are from the Polynesian culture and from Maori tribes,
Mm-hmm.
and who were native New Zealanders, like working on this movie. They had like an entire like a collective of advisors and people.
Yeah.
So they were trying to, like, you can tell they tried to do their homework.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, I think Coco did a better job at portraying its
Yeah.
culture and getting people on board with it. But I think Moana was like a decent effort, and like for a kids movie, I love it. Like I just
Yeah.
think it's fun. Like, and it's heartwarming. I don't normally like get emotional, but man, those scenes with the grandma though, I was just like, she's a stingray.
Yeah.
She dances with stingrays.
Right.
Oh my god, it's like dances with wolves, but she dances with stingrays. Dances with stingrays, and then she passes away. I don't know if you noticed, but this was the coolest thing in this movie. I think it's what grabbed me
Mm-hmm.
off the bat with this movie, is when the grandmother passes away, and they have this rear shot. They have this forward shot of Moana sailing her boat out towards you, and behind her, you see the light. You see a light come
Mhm.
from the back of the like buildings where she was, and drop down and come out into the sea as a fluorescent stingray, which is like, it's a representation of her grandmother's as she's leaving. Her
Yeah.
grandmother's spirit is leaving her grandmother's body and following to guide her out to her. I'm getting emotional just thinking about. I was just like, that was such a good touch
Yeah.
right there, especially since that was probably the last conversation that that the grandmother had before she passed.
Mm-hmm.
Was handing over the stone, being like, "This is the heart of Te Fiti. You have to go and complete your destiny."
Yeah.
Because destiny is so much of a big thing. Um, although now I'm confused because that means that Moana has two destinies. Like, the first destiny is becoming chief. The second destiny is being picked by the water to deliver the heart of Te Fiti.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. You can have two destinies, and one is a temporary destiny. Delivering the heart to Te Fiti. Once that's done, it's done, and then you can be the chief. That's fine. And her father was the chief the whole time, so it's not like her leaving the island meant that the leadership of the island was gone. So, it's just a temporary. It's just a temporary destiny, and then it's done. It's done. So I think it's okay to have two destinies. Yeah.
Right. Right. Were you kind of horrified with those kids at the very beginning when they were hearing the story about Maui? All the kids are like terrified. But Moana's just sitting there like.
Nah, it's okay to be scared as a kid. That's a perfectly normal part of growing up, is just being terrified. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't find anything scary with Moana.
No. Yeah, no. I feel like Moana's pretty. Well, although I have heard that the crab was scary. I've heard from parents that I know, their kids were scared of the crab, so they don't like
the shiny crab.
Yeah, they actually they usually skip over the scene with the crab because the kids are scared of him. So
But also, is skipping over the scene with the crab really that bad of a thing?
I don't know.
Can we talk? Okay, can we talk about the crab?
Yeah, let's talk about the crab.
Because I was saying last week that in every Disney movie there is one song that does not belong. At least in every Disney movie that's kind of considered a half musical.
Yeah.
Or even like any sort of musical. Yeah, there's always one song that's weird. And I feel like in Moana, that one song is shiny.
Mm-hmm.
That scene is when they go into the realm of monsters.
Yeah.
It's just very it feels out of tone to me. Like, that's the one scene in the movie where I think as a kid I would probably skip it too. Because it doesn't feel like completely relevant to the plot.
Yeah, and it's too long. It's a very long scene. It's way too long. So. Yeah.
I found myself phasing in and out, like watching it again. I was like, I'm like looking at my phone a lot. Well, which is sad because like watching it again too, it wasn't nearly as bad as the first time that I watched it, where I was like cringing, going, "Ooh, the jokes are kind of ooh."
Yeah.
And it wasn't nearly as bad as I remembered it being, but it was still like tonally different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like the jokes just strike me in weird ways. But that might just be, what's his name, Jermaine Clemens from Flight of the Conchords.
Is that?
Yeah, he's the one who voiced
that
character. And I love What We Do in the Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, like having him in this movie, again, the cultural representation, he's a native New Zealander.
Yeah.
But also like, why? Why was this monster in the movie? Why is he a snail? Why is he like a pimpin' snail?
Mm-hmm.
That's just like, he has a grill.
Right.
The snail has a grill.
So I didn't take very many notes with this movie, but I did make a note about the crab. And I was wondering, why does the crab want Maui's hook? Because he likes things that are shiny. That's his thing. Shiny, shiny. He's always talking about shiny. Why does he want the hook? Because the hook is not shiny.
What if it's because Maui was preventing him from taking the humans' shiny things? Right? Because Maui's supposed to protect the humans, and like all he wants is to just make the humans love him.
Yeah.
So maybe like Maui was one of those things that was getting in the way, and that's where their beef lied.
Maybe.
But he never really figured that out.
Yeah,
they don't
I think that needed to be explained. Well, it doesn't need. I'm sure most people watched the movie and didn't ask that question, and it's fine. But I don't know. And I
But it
watched it.
fleshed him out too.
I found the movie perfectly enjoyable, despite despite that question never being answered. But so I don't think
Questionable crab.
they don't necessarily need to answer it. But it is something that little nitpick to bring up is why does the crab want the hook when the hook is not shiny? But he
It's a
has a
good,
whole
yeah.
song about shiny because before I thought it was just treasure, and the hook is it's a valuable treasure. But in the entire song, he never talks about really wanting to be rich and wealthy. He just talks about having shiny things, and he wants to be shiny, and that But it's like, so then why is your centerpiece this hook made out of bones? I don't know.
That's true.
So,
Because it's not shiny. It's
hmm
valuable, but
yeah,
it's not shiny. That's a good point.
yeah. So I don't know.
I feel like YouTube would have an answer for that. I'm gonna
I think that's
now
a
that I know that, I'm gonna go watch some theory videos
right.
because I know there's a few trying to attempt to explain what their beef is.
Yeah, because I mean that's more of a nitpick. It's not a huge deal, but it is something I felt like it was worth bringing up.
Hmm.
Yeah,
How'd you feel about the songs, Kevin?
the songs were good. I could definitely tell they were written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I could definitely. It's got his signature all over it. I could definitely tell all over it. I didn't find them particularly memorable. There's, I didn't have anything stuck in my head afterwards. It's no Frozen, Frozen, that was a huge, and I don't hear anybody singing Moana that often. Like, outside of the Oscars, there was nobody. Like, I didn't see a ton. Like, I'm sure there's a few YouTube videos of people with a ukulele singing Moana songs, but it's nothing like Frozen. Frozen, everybody was singing Let It Go or Love's an Open Door or whatever. Like, everybody had their cover songs and everybody was singing on YouTube with their ukuleles and everything. But with Moana, I didn't see very much of that at all. And, but I think there's a reason because it's not as catchy. So the music was fine. I didn't feel the need to fast forward through any of the songs. I felt like they were perfectly listenable, but they weren't spectacular. I don't know.
See, and that's where I disagree with you
Yeah, I
because
figured you might disagree with that because I know you really like it.
I'm such a cinema music
hmm
buff, if that makes sense. I agree that a lot of the songs in here are not extremely memorable. Hang on, I want to go and get my book really quick. So yeah, and it's really evident too if you look inside the track listing. So like this is the most common, like when you want to play music and you want to play music from here, you look at the track listing, how many songs are in here. We have Where You Are. I call it the coconut intro song because there's just something. The only line I remember from that intro song is, we worship the coconut and something about coconuts. I don't know. I don't know why I got coconuts from that. How Far I'll Go, by far the best song in here. But like, look at how many songs. There's not really that many.
hmm
Like, and the ones that are in here, some of them are kind of short. Like, I Am Moana, the reprise song. That's all of 1 minute in the movie, but it got its own page. So there's not a lot of songs, but I think the ones that are memorable are in pivotal enough scenes. Like How Far I'll Go is the one that I feel is like 10 times a better anthem than than Let It Go,
hmm
but it's also harder. Like, it doesn't follow the traditional song format that Let It Go has either.
hmm
Let It Go, I don't think that has any key changes. It's a very much like verse and a chorus, verse and a chorus. The
Yeah.
end. This one's a little bit different. It starts out kind of slow. Starts out a little slow. I've been staring at the edge of the water before it finally starts kicking in. So I think it's unique because it feels a little more Broadway than anything.
hmm
Like the way that the song is kind of set. But I totally understand it's not the catchiest thing that you hear on the radio. Like, I heard Let It Go on the radio.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. I mean,
Yeah, and I had to listen to that. I
because
would have rather, in a way, listened to How Far I'll Go on the radio.
yeah.
I just think it's better.
And I mean, I when Frozen came out, I feel like I had the same reaction to Frozen that you had to Moana. I saw it in theaters, and then the next day I brought some of my brothers to the theater. I was like, you have to see this movie, and they watched it, and then they were like, get out of here, Kevin. But anyways, they obviously weren't as enthused as I was, and then like. But I went to the theater probably like 4 or 5 times to watch Frozen in the theater. I was like way into it.
No way!
Yeah,
I never would have
I
predicted that
I
for
was
you.
like way into it, and then, but then like the more I watched it, the more I started to realize like little things that started to bug me, and they started to bug me more and more. Now I can't stand it anymore. But when it first came out, I was like, wow, you know. But with Moana, and it was mostly the music. I bought the soundtrack. I learned, I learned all the words. It was awesome, you know. Like I was like super into the Frozen soundtrack, but for Moana, it didn't strike the same chord with me, and so maybe it's just a personal taste. I don't know, because they were they were good, but I don't know.
Right?
Or
It's so surprising
maybe
to me
it's
too.
because I'm a little bit tired of Lin Manuel Miranda. Like I'm kind of exhausted with his music. It's because like when In the Heights came out, I was like listening to that soundtrack all the time, and then there's Hamilton. I listened to that soundtrack a lot, and now I'm just kind of tired. I'm kind of exhausted by Lin Manuel Miranda, and so when I finally watched this movie, I'm like, it's another. It's just I get it. So
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like he himself does not live up to the hype,
yeah, no,
because he
I mean
totally
he's
does.
really good, and
Yeah.
if this were the first Lin Manuel Miranda soundtrack I ever listened to, I would probably be super excited about it, the same way I was with In the Heights or Hamilton. But
Mhm.
because I've already exhausted it, maybe that's why I wasn't into it as much.
You know what I just figured out? I think it may be because the songs are all similar.
Hmm.
Like I'm looking on here.
Yeah, well, he's got to be
You're
because
welcome. It's like the same, basically the same thing as Where You Are.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Hold on a second.
Shiny's a little bit different. But yeah, like here, You're Welcome feels very similar to Where You Are. How Far I'll Go is basically I Am Moana and Know Who You Are. Like they're basically all kind of the same
Hmm.
thing. We Know the Way also feels a lot like the same. So they kind of, I can see now maybe why they're all kind of within the same sort of vein in terms of like songwriting.
Hmm.
I still find them, I don't know. The ones that resonated the most with me was How Far I'll Go and You're Welcome,
Yeah.
because those are the most singable ones. The other ones aren't entirely singable. Um, not because they're hard to sing, but just because of the way that they're structured. Which is, it's surprising to me because if you try to sing How Far I'll Go versus singing Let It Go,
Hmm.
like Let It Go is way harder to sing and should not be sung by the entire general population
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's just in a belting range that is hard. It's difficult. It's heckin' hard to sing.
Hmm.
How Far I'll Go isn't as hard to sing,
Hmm.
um, but it never caught the airplay.
Yeah.
I think that it deserved. That's just my opinion. I think it's underrated. And at least I like Shiny better than I like the Troll Rock song.
Right. Yeah.
But also
That's true.
that song was so random.
Yeah.
They also never explain the Troll Rocks. Like even in the second film for Frozen, they never do.
Actually, I wanted to talk about Coco a little bit in relation to Moana story wise.
Moana.
So,
Yeah, a lot of
because
people compare.
I liked Moana way more than Coco.
Moana is not only a nostalgic movie for me, it touches the inner reaches of my soul. I love Moana. It's getting an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I'm deducting a few points just for the fact that there are some weird plot things in there, but overall, I like solid movie in the Disney canon. Okay, Thank you so much for watching, all you Cinepickers. Make sure to like or hit that subscribe button for more content like this, or leave a comment in the comments below about which movie we should Cinepick next. See ya!